Guys, welcome back.
Hi, guys.
Today we're going to check out this video from Kayla Elizabeth. They did a story analysis of Clair Obscur way back, like, I think a week after the game released. So they played through it pretty quickly, and then they gave their take. I personally don't like videos that come out this quickly normally, but I've heard good things, so we're going to give it a chance. I think if you play a game that quickly, like in a week's time, and I feel like it was content focused for a lot of people when this game dropped. So I'm hoping they didn't fall into that pitfall of like, I got to get something out for this game because it's going to be big. Like, you can tell how good Expedition 33 is as soon as you pick it up. So I think anybody that's played the game knows as soon as you pick it up that it's going to be a really good game. But yeah, Angel says there was some stuff she just got wrong, so I'm guessing it was rushing the script. Yeah, that's what I mean. I think a game as good as Clair Obscur takes a lot of time to process. But yeah, read her first comment on it. Okay, good idea. We'll take a look at the comment before we start the video, just so we can see. I obviously meant to say the time passes quicker in the canvas than real life. Okay, so that's one pinned one. I don't know if there's other ones. But yeah. So yeah, obviously, I mean, I think everybody knows that there is a little bit of a time skew, a big time skew on the canvas. I would say 67 years. Probably like a month per hour. I don't know. Like, it's a lot of time that passes inside the canvas versus what passes on the outside. But let's take a look at the video. Jasmine, are you ready? Can you see everything?
I'm ready. Yep, I can see everything on my side.
All right, we'll see what Kayla has to say.
Clair Obscur translates to light, dark. It is the French translation of chiaroscuro, an art technique that originated in the Renaissance period, but became very popular in both Renaissance and Baroque art. It is often used to depict drama or add more dimension to a painting. But in Clair Obscur, it encompasses everything about this world, from the landscapes to the characters we meet. Life.
I'm not going to pause this much, but Clair Obscur is the juxtaposition of light and dark.
Yes.
It's not just light and dark or to make drama. It's the specific juxtaposition of the two next to each other. Okay.
Is Clair Obscur, filled with light and dark. And this story is about the light and dark in all of us, and how grief changes that balance. Grief is a terrible thing to endure. There are no instructions on how to do it properly. We just learn as we go. But for some, grief is not something they're able to overcome. They are stuck in the past and the vicious cycle of loss, unable to move on. The Desandre family was a loving family. Aline and her husband Renoir loved their 3 children dearly, and through their children they could pass down the gift of being a painter. Painters had the ability to create entire worlds within their canvases, full of living and breathing sentient beings. Their gift was beautiful just as much as it was dangerous. Aline and Renoir spent their lives painting their canvases. They created hundreds of canvas worlds, and it was Aline who taught Renoir that spending time within their creations cost them dearly, because being a painter meant balancing life and your creations, and not getting lost within them. At a young age, their 3 children were taught how to paint, and followed in the footsteps of their talented and skilled painter parents. For Clair, she was a natural, eventually becoming more skilled than her mother. For Alicia, she was more interested in reading and wasn't as skilled at painting as her 2 siblings were.
Something, too, that I kind of want to point out, I know that Clair wanted to go deal with the writers more than she wanted to kick her mom out of the painting, but I also think that a lot of people miss that point, like what she just said, that Clair is a better painter, like more skilled. Mm-hmm. I think people think that Clair is on Renoir's side, when again I think she's more in the middle. She doesn't care as much. She wants her father out of the painting, and she wants her mom to not be grieving, but she's also like, I don't care that much. I'm focused on this. So when she puts the Nevrons in the painting and makes that decision, it's more to balance it so that it can actually have a resolution. Because if it doesn't, then the paintress will forever be in the painting. Like her mom Aline will forever be in the painting, and her father will keep trying to push her out but never achieve it.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure she said that to Alicia/Mael during the epilogue.
Yeah.
Like when they were in that room.
Yeah,
and
she was
going
like, I
over
don't
that.
care if she's grieving, that kind of thing. Yeah. She 100% doesn't view the people in the painting as real. The painting is a toy, basically. Yeah, no, I agree with that as well, that she doesn't believe that. But she also doesn't pick sides. Like, she's not for kicking Aline out, and she's also not entirely on the side of Aline to stay in the painting. Literally like a StarCraft unit in her mind. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's keep going.
For Verso, he, like Alicia, was not interested in painting, despite being very skilled, but wanted to focus on his music instead. Because of this, he only ever painted one canvas world, and this canvas held a piece of his soul, as did every canvas to the respective painter. Alicia and Verso wanting other paths than being a painter frustrated Aline, and there was tensions between Renoir and Aline while raising their children. Eventually, Aline did let Verso play the piano, and after painting his soul canvas, he wouldn't ever paint again. On December 33, 1905, the writers set fire to the Desandre house, and the Desandre family would never be the same again. Aline was the head of the Painters' Council, which made them targets in a feud with the writers. The writers targeted the Desandre family by preying on Alicia, and used her love of writing to get her to trust them. The exact details are unknown.
Alicia was the one that liked writing? I don't remember this. Maybe they just like briefly spoke about it, but I don't remember that being a part of like dialogue and stuff like that. I think she's on the side of kicking Aline out, if only because her broken family is causing issues outside the painting.
Yeah.
Somewhat.
I know
only had that one little portrait. She wasn't a big painter. Yeah, but it seemed like she was striving to be a good painter. Like she wanted her parents' approval. I'm not sure.
And again, maybe I'm thinking more Mael and not Alicia, but it just always felt like either one, they didn't really know where they fit in or what they wanted to do. But that's interesting. I don't remember that either.
Known. But this fire would destroy the Desandre family and take the life of Verso, who sacrificed himself to save Alicia. Alicia suffered extensive injuries, with her skin being marred by burns and her voice being lost from the damage. Her physical wounds were extensive, but even more than her injuries, the damage to her mind was far worse. Alicia blamed herself for her brother's death, which was only made worse by seeing the state of her family. Both Clair and Aline blamed Alicia for Verso's death. Alicia, who was just a child. They still held resentment against her, Aline most of all. She could not bear to look at her daughter, and because of it, she didn't want to be around her. Her mother Aline was so distraught that she threw herself into Verso's canvas, desperate to hold on to anything left of her son, and desperate to get away from what was left of her family. Here she enters the world he created as a child, and here she escapes her grief. At least she tries to. It's unknown exactly how many times or how long she remained within the canvas, as time seems to pass slower in the canvas compared to real life. But
also, I don't know if she's going to bring this up, but like all of Lumiere, it feels like, and seems like, was made by her, by Aline, not by Verso. And a lot of people that I see comment about this game have strong arguments based on the fact, their fact, not a true fact, that Verso made Lumiere, and that's just not true. Like, all of the evidence in the game, anything that resembles a human, basically, was made by Aline and all of Lumiere to kind of, like, use Verso's, being close to Verso's soul while also remaking her past life.
Did she, like, add to his painting, you think, or
that's what I'm
painted
saying. She
over?
added Lumiere in there. Like, she just added that
Okay. I didn't
Yeah.
know if like she maybe painted over certain things or if she
No, because like
okay.
everything that they say about when they were kids and stuff like that, they would hang out with the Nevrons, they would do these things.
Oh, yes,
but
true.
there's no mention of Lumiere or other people in the painting. It seems like all of that was created just to fool her into living in this world with her new family, like kind of trick herself into that being
kind of
her
her
new
way
reality.
of grieving.
Yeah.
Here, she would live in denial and completely abandon her real family. And instead, she would paint a new life. She would also paint the town of Lumiere and all
There
of
we
its
go.
people.
Thank you.
For a time, she was happy with her painted family and her painted town, but this happiness wouldn't last long. Aline would enter and would not leave, even after Renoir went after her. Renoir tried everything to get her to return to her real family, and so he began erasing the canvas to make her leave. In a desperate attempt to stop him, Aline summoned her large wooden mannequin. She would then paint the monolith on top of Renoir to keep him in place. But to keep him there, she also would have to remain there on top of the monolith. During this time, he built up chroma, planning his escape during his 67 years of imprisonment. Clair would also enter the canvas in an attempt to save her mother, and she created the Nevrons to help her father, ensuring that if any expeditioners died, Aline's chroma within them wouldn't return to her. This would tip the scale in Renoir's favor. While caged in the monolith, he was still able to erase the oldest creations, which were the oldest people of Lumiere. The Gamage was Renoir erasing the world, not Aline. The number on the monolith that her mannequin painted was the number of years left that she could sustain her power to hold him there, to keep him from erasing the entire
God, this
canvas.
scene was so perfect.
The number
Yeah.
was a warning to the people of Lumiere, who had been cut off from the rest of the world due to Aline and Renoir's fighting and their creation of the monolith. This event would be known as the Fracture, when Aline and Renoir doomed the world. But Aline would do anything to save this world that Verso had created. Here, she could be with him again. And not only Verso, but her entire family. She painted a copy of Verso into Verso's painting and gave him his memories, but erased his death. She also painted a version of Alicia with her scars, making her daughter suffer the wounds of her resentment and blame. Because even in her desperate attempt to get away from the fire and what happened, she still blamed Alicia, and that she couldn't escape. She painted Clair, but Clair hated Aline's portrait of her, so she painted over it. And Clair was the only one skilled enough to paint over someone else's creation. Here, she would make her family immortal, so she would never lose them again. She could be in complete denial. Verso wasn't dead, and their immortality meant she wouldn't.
The weird part about this is that where they say she could be in complete denial, painting Alicia that way is a constant reminder that this is a fake world, if that makes sense. Like, you know, as the person that painted her, that the fire did that to her and the fire killed Verso. So it's a really weird decision. And honestly, a lot of people say that this comes from the thing of like she blames Alicia, but I don't think it comes from she blames Alicia. I think seeing Alicia that way with those scars imprinted in her that is who Alicia is so much so that she painted her that way. Because Verso also says at one point, like, painting is more about essence. So when you create somebody in this world, you have to like think of them the way that you think of them. And it's one of those things where if like you see somebody in that way, where they have those scars, where they've been burned and they don't have the ability to speak and stuff like that, that like really impacts your mental thought of like who this person is when you try to think of their essence, I guess.
No, that's
in
true.
a way.
That's
so
true.
I don't know how true it is that she blamed Alicia and wanted her to look that way. Because I feel like a lot of people say that, but it's never said in the game that she blames her.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I think people are making that assumption just
Yeah,
based
people kind of
on
make that leap.
how, like, the interactions that we've seen of, you know, like Alicia, like with her mom, like
Yeah.
kind of even in the epilogue, it's just the way that she talked to her, I think. But you're right. I don't remember specifically hearing that at all.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have to experience their death ever again. Alongside her children, she also painted Renoir. Renoir's painted version was a darker, more violent version of him. For when she painted him, he was trying to get her to return to the living world. She was angry at him for trying to destroy the last piece of verso that she had, so she painted the worst facets of him. And unlike the living, breathing, real Renoir, this version of him didn't want to destroy the canvas. Instead, he wanted to
Okay, so that's not true either. She didn't paint Renoir that way because he was trying to destroy the painting. She made these versions of them before he came in to destroy the painting. So that's just completely false because it doesn't line up with the timeline. So again, I feel like a little bit rushed on some of this stuff. All of this is just the background and the creator of this video, like their take on what they took from the game.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this is super wrong. The version of him is, again, just the essence, what she believes he is like in the real world. Yeah, pre-fracture, like this Renoir is the Renoir she fell in love with. 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever he is at this stage, this many years later after he's been created, it could be a bit something else, but that's just nature and nurture. But the nature, the part that she created, was not this like kind of rude person. It's just what it kind of turned into, because the version she created of him wasn't perfect. It's not actually him. It's how she perceives him.
keep this version of their family together. He was protecting his wife, the paintress, and the monolith, and would also destroy any expeditioners who made it close enough. He was determined, he was relentless, and he was ruthless. Because despite her anger at him while painting this version of him, his loyalty and unending devotion to his family was still his main defining trait, consistent across every version of Renoir. For Renoir, the curator would be his actual painted version, and the curator would try to help the expedition and Maëlle be successful in the takedown of his wife. Killing her in this world would set her free in the living world. But by staying inside for so long, she was killing herself in this canvas. Her strength in the real world was dwindling, and her power here with it. While Aline and Renoir were fighting inside the painting, their children are left to fend for themselves, suffering from the loss of their brother, and now the disappearance of their parents. Alicia blamed herself for her brother's death, which is only compounded by her sister Clair also blaming her. She tells Alicia that the writers used her against her family, and that unlike Verso, who chose to save her, she wouldn't make the same choice. She's mad, she's resentful, she's bitter. Clair is the embodiment of someone who has become angry from her grief. She both loves and hates Verso for trading his life for his sister's. For she is alive, but he's still dead. She thinks him foolish, but she still understands why he did it. But now she is dealing with the consequences of his actions. She is more cold than the rest of her family. And unlike the rest of her family that is suffering through their grief, Clair is the only one that is there, forced to pick up the pieces. Her family is in disarray from Verso's loss, to the point that they have completely lost themselves in the canvas. Clair is the only one living in the real world right now, and she's the only one trying to figure out what happened and what to do about it. While her bitterness is maybe too much and crosses a little bit into cruelty, it makes sense she has hardened herself to deal with the loss of her brother, then the loss of her mother in the canvas, followed by the loss of her father, all after watching her sister turn into a shadow of her former self. Deciding that she can use help, she tells Alicia to enter the canvas to go after her mother and father. And this is where Maëlle's story begins. But before entering the canvas, Alicia hides.
Okay, so all of this is true. I guess that does mean that Clea is on the side of getting her mother out of the canvas somewhat, but she doesn't deem it worthy of coming between her and getting revenge for Verso's death.
Yeah, I agree with what Angel's saying, because in the epilogue, I remember her saying, like, she doesn't care that her mother is choosing to grieve there, but I remember her saying she sent her in to help Renoir and not necessarily her mother because of, like, the fight that was going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's why she went in. So yeah, that is a little wrong, but the rest of it is true. Something like the only way to end this is to get the mother out of the painting by helping Renoir. Yeah. Yeah. There was one plot thing y'all are missing, like what you said before. If y'all played BG3, Mayel is the Shadow. Yeah, I know she's Shadowheart voice actress.
Levels. Oh yeah, no,
Yeah.
we're definitely gonna keep playing the game, but yeah, I don't think this person that's making this video did that either. Excuse me. Again, they got it out very quickly.
Yeah, we
All
haven't
right,
done Simon yet either, but we plan to do that soon.
let's continue.
it from her mother in hopes that she cannot enter it again. With her plan in motion, she enters the canvas, but Aline's chroma overwhelms her, and so she is reborn as Maëlle. Maëlle is born to two loving parents who are killed in the gommage, and then she is bounced around from family to family until Gustave takes her in. With Gustave, she finds a family, but in their desperation to take down the paintress, Gustave is killed. Maëlle, who already endured the death of her real brother, and then the losses of her family in this world, now must again lose Gustave, mirroring her real-life experience. She must once again watch as her brother is killed, and there is nothing that she can do about it. Here is when Verso reveals himself, later admitting that he could have done it earlier, but chose to let Gustave die, in hopes that Maëlle would have one less connection to the canvas world. His actions are selfish and hurtful to his sister, which is a common thing with the Desandra family. They are all extremely selfish, and there are several moments showing how selfish each one of them is throughout the story. Aline's actions are very selfish and only lead to the suffering of her real living family, but also to all of those within the canvas world. Verso is selfish that he keeps the truth hidden and lets Gustave die, hurting Alicia in the process. Alicia is selfish for wanting to keep the canvas alive at the cost of her own life, and being okay with her family losing another child after having just lost Verso. Clea is selfish in that her bitterness has consumed her, and she is done trying to help her family. She's lost most of her compassion towards what they're going through. If anything, Renoir is the least selfish. He plays tricks and plays games and is deceitful, but everything that he is doing is to free his family from this place. He will even fight them and become the villain if it means they will live. During Renoir and Aline's time feuding within the painting, it seems like before the imprisonment, Renoir tried anything to get his wife to leave, even tricking her. And Renoir is tricky. His words are not deceitful, but just enough is hidden that he isn't telling the entire truth. And when meeting the real Renoir in the canvas, he disguises himself from Maëlle. He remains in the shadows, guiding the expedition and helping them, but no more. He watches from afar.
Okay, pause. Nocturne, thank you so much for the Prime.
Thanks for the Prime.
This is also wrong. Here's why. This thing that looks like the curator, I don't think that's the real Renoir either. It is.
Oh, really?
It is very interesting that the paintress has the giant mannequin thing that works for her, but also has the same emotions as her and reactions and stuff like that. To me, these faceless things that they create it feels like it's a way for them to be a part of the painting, kind of. I don't know how to explain it exactly. It's like if you're what's a good analogy for this? I mean, if you're going to go in space, you need a spacesuit kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel like if you're going into the painting, then you almost need this sort of second thing to impact the painting, if that makes sense. I saw it as the Faceless. There are their avatar. They're in world bodies as gods, basically. Yeah, somewhat. But if Renoir is, when he enters the painting, he's trapped underneath the monolith. So this thing can't be Renoir if he's trapped under the monolith, because the curator could just go to Lumiere and just kill all the people.
I see what you're saying. That's interesting.
So I think that if you're going to make a painting, there's a few steps to it, and the first step is making something like this that allows you to operate inside the painting. Like, these faceless creatures aren't an avatar necessarily. They're not like the way that you control a character in VR or anything like that. They are almost like a I don't know how to explain it. Like, Verso left one of these behind. His soul is one of these faceless creatures, and that faceless creature is literally running like the physics engine of this entire simulation. And without that version of Verso, then the entire painting ceases to exist. So these faceless things are kind of like a way that they can interface with the painting, and it's almost necessary, otherwise they can't interface with the painting. So the curator is its own being. It's like a self-portrait that you have to create in order to be inside of the painting.
Do you think
that's actually a good one too, Kitty King.
Alicia would have been one of those if she didn't get painted over and reborn?
I don't think that she would have been one of these, but I think she would, if she wanted to do like high-level painting, like do really powerful things inside of the painting, that she would need one of these, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. And also, just to backtrack a little bit, because I think this information might be a little important. Brandon, thank you for stopping on YouTube. We're over on Twitch if you want to continue the discussion. But watching this delay, but Mayel told Painted Alicia that their mother blamed her in her side quest. She even offered to heal her before Painted her told her to end her. So that's how we got that information. I kind of remember that.
But then again, that's coming from Mayel, which could just be like an internalization, like
it could
thinking
be
that her mother blamed her.
But that is interesting.
Like, if it had come from Renoir, then I would believe it, because Renoir would have that information potentially from conversations that Mayel is not a part of. But for Mayel to believe that, that's more of like an insecurity almost. And we also see how immature she is in that situation as well, by not giving Verso a chance to say
And what if she
goodbye.
said it out of like malicious intent too? Like, I don't know. Like, towards the end, she seemed to, I feel, not kind of lost herself and her reasonings for things, so I don't know. After
that, she would have had her own memories back, though, so she would have known how her mother would have thought about her and treated her somewhat, but again, that could also just be a perception. Like, it could be very hard for the mother to face her, but she could also, like, I think at that age, you're, mature enough to know that those bad feelings that you have towards somebody is because of that, and to like put them away in a mature way. I don't know how to explain that either. But like, if something bad happens to somebody, you don't blame the other person just because they were involved, but there's also that weird thing where you have the feelings, so you have to like deal with them and overcome them. Therapy. They all need therapy.
Yeah, this is a good question. So Moon asked, so why did the curator turn into the real Renoir at the end if it wasn't him? Just curious. He was also able to turn back into the curator for the final fight.
Again, that's where it comes from. Like, this is something that gives you power in the painting by having it. So when he re-enters the painting and comes back into it, he kind of uses it like a conduit to bring himself into the painting. And then he can also use it to do things like combat and that sort of thing. But during this time, again, he's trapped under the monolith. So this thing is operating on its own during this time. It's still a part of him. And that's the part where, like, they call them, like, they say that Verso left a piece of his soul. Like, to me, that's the self-portrait portion. Like, to do a self-portrait when you're learning painting is such an important step of the process. And it has like a lot of like cathartic things that happen with it. I think these things are necessary to interface with the painting. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And a piece of their soul. And then
this might be
I think Nocturne also said it that it seems like it's something that is left behind as well when they're not in the painting. He was able to open the rift to show Aline without being the curator, so he definitely had the power to affect the canvas without it. But the curator is still in the painting. I think you're taking what I'm saying wrong in that I'm not saying that the curator is the thing that has the power. He has that power, but in order to operate inside the painting with that power, the curator has to first exist. In order for this painting to exist, Verso has to create that faceless soul piece before the rest of this painting can exist. And then for Aline and Renoir to affect the canvas the way that they're affecting it, they know that they also need these types of things created.
Before
Creator
we
is Super Saiyan. I don't know how to explain it. It's like a mirror version of yourself that you create inside the painting, but it's not a perfect mirror because it's a self-portrait, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And if you don't do that first, then you won't be able. We are also 67 years into it, so Renoir has quite a bit more power now, with all the chroma being held from creations by Clair. True. Always find it crazy how much humans crave our parents' approval our entire lives. Bruh, preach. This video is going to be a 3-hour video at this point. I'm enjoying it.
I could tell you're so excited. I just like wanted to say one thing, but I don't know if it's a reach or not. But Maëlle has always kind of been a little like, with who she puts her trust in, it felt.
Yeah.
And the curator saved, her, and she found comfort in him. Do you think maybe that also was a reason why he might have changed into the curator as like...
You're in the wrong spot. I don't believe at all he changes into the curator. At all. The curator exists, and it is a tool. The curator exists, and it is a tool to him.
So he just changed...
It's faceless, almost like a representation of something that he has not given a mind to. It serves a purpose. It's like, these things are like if you have a program versus an AI. An AI can do everything that program can do, but the AI can do more, and it's able to make decisions. The curator does not make decisions. It operates based on the will of... like his will, but also has a lot of power because of that. But not the same kind of power that a painter has, if that makes sense. That's why it can do combat, it can do these things, but he doesn't.
No, that makes a lot more sense. I think
it's a way of interfacing
I'm
with the
Moon and stuff, like where I'm trying to find like I dig for like underlining meanings of things, but some things like that probably
that's also
don't.
shown when you have the faceless girl or woman in the middle of that big battlefield. Who is that?
True.
Is that Clair? Is that a way that Clair made one of those as well, so she could do things in the painting that she needed to do?
Verso kind of dropped her off to the curator.
Exactly.
Oh, true.
So Verso knows somewhat what it is and that sort of thing. But again, if the curator is Renoir, then how is there also a faceless boy that has all of the same characteristics inside of the painting if Verso's not in the painting? And if Renoir isn't inside of the painting, the curator is still inside of the painting. So we do have to agree that that Renoir is not the curator.
No,
because
you're right.
The curator is in the painting doing things when he's not there.
Yeah, Verso literally knew it was Renoir. He's sus about Renoir being there when he first arrives at camp.
It is Renoir, but it isn't, guys. You have to understand, it's a self-portrait.
Yeah, I see what Seth is saying now. I was thinking the same way y'all were, but I see what Seth is saying. That makes sense.
Yeah, Renoir is trapped under the monolith, guys.
Yeah,
until the paintress is defeated, Renoir cannot be out from underneath the monolith.
They did say he was trapped under the monolith, but that was when the fracture happened. So I feel he maybe got out, ? Otherwise, why would he have been able to erase her previous creations? A lot going on for sure.
No, and that's a good point as well. You can see the wave of power come out from under the monolith whenever he erases them. If he had gotten free from the monolith, then he wouldn't have to do that to erase her creations. He could just kill them. And we know that he would just kill them because he quite literally does that when he comes to Lumiere.
Interesting.
I meant Verso knowing who it is, projection avatar. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he knows that this thing is a part of the real Renoir, but it's not the real Renoir. When you create this painting, leaving a piece of your soul behind, I think these things are the representation of that, while also operating under the same presumptions that the creator would want them
Yeah,
to do,
Tendarin
basically.
said something similar on YouTube saying, I'm guessing they're using a part of their soul to interact with the canvas.
Thank you. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's the self-portrait. That's they call it that, but it's not a piece of the soul. It's something that they create and they call it the soul.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Like,
makes sense.
I don't think the painting can exist until you've made one of these. And in a lot of ways, again, they are the physics engine. And I think that's why Clair is able to paint over other people and others aren't. Because she probably does something with hers that's a little bit different. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, we'll continue. These blow my mind because of how they're shown in the story. How there's different ones, how they show up, all of that. Do you think using the soul helps them keep them alive better in the real world? Maybe that's related to the methods taught to Renoir. I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think it's just a way of interfacing with the painting when it's not your painting. Like, if Verso is the BIOS, like the soul piece of Verso is running it, is like the operating system, then this thing right here is Unreal Engine 5. You see what I'm saying? It's inside the computer telling the computer what to do, basically, so that it can do things like this, basically showing her how to release this. If the curator could do this, he would do this. He can't, but he knows how it's done because he came from Renoir. So he knows the feeling of homaging somebody, and he gives that to Maëlle because, again, it's like a something that's operated next to Renoir for so long. Curator was from real Renoir, not painted one. Yeah.
That's interesting. Also, retro welcome in, fam.
Yeah. These things only exist in the painting if you yourself go into the painting, like the real version. All right, we'll continue. I'm literally going to make a whole video on this because I think these things...
It's interesting.
I think they really thought about this. I think the writer actually has rules and things for these faceless creatures that go with you into the painting.
And I thought about it completely.
Then you can't go in the painting.
I thought about it completely different, but it makes a lot of sense what you're saying. I thought it was, like I thought there was more of a connection. Yeah.
Interfere. Why? Maybe he believes Maëlle will succeed where he failed. Maybe he's using her as another trick to use against Aline. Maybe he's finally realized that these 67 years of his methods aren't working. So Maëlle's methods might. It's clear he loves his daughter, and maybe he believes she can succeed where he failed. Whatever he's doing, it's clear it's in hopes of defeating the Paintress, even if his methods are questionable. He really does just want his family back, while Aline seems to want the opposite. She is so consumed in her grief that not only does she want to leave the living world behind, fully knowing the consequences of being inside the canvas for so long, but she doesn't really want her family back. The painted versions of her family are in black and white, with strings of gold. Maybe they were unfinished, or maybe she didn't want to give them the liveliness of color. Instead, she paints an angry, darker Renoir. And she paints Alicia with her lost voice and scars, hidden behind a mask, forcing Alicia to have a permanent reminder of Verso's death, and that her family resents her for it. Painted Verso seems to be the only one given color and vibrancy, and in a way, life. He is the only one she is really focusing on. Lost in her grief, she doesn't seem to care about the rest of her family, only her son that she is so desperate to hold on to. It's no wonder Clair would dislike a version of her that maybe felt like it wasn't given as much love or care as Verso was given. Maybe that's why she painted over it. Maybe this only added to her bitterness. Or maybe the black and white versions of her family are depictions of the change they went through from experiencing Verso's death. Something was lost from each one of them, and that dulled them, removing the colors. And maybe she didn't want to paint something she didn't see. Or maybe it's really just the blindness of grief. She didn't paint them with colors because she simply spent more time on Verso. Because that is the embodiment of her grief. Nothing matters but him. Which is ironic, because Verso wants nothing more than to die at this point. He is a puppet to the Desandra family, pulled between Aline, Maëlle, and Renoir. He is being used and he knows it. And not only that, but he is aware of the living world and knows that this world isn't real. He's known this whole time. He is no doubt questioning his existence and purpose with knowing so much, especially when he is not an actual painter like the real Verso was. He can't be ejected from this canvas and live in the real world. This is it for him. This is as much as he can be alive. But he tried. He tried to live within the canvas. It took him many years before he finally distanced himself from his family. And eventually he would join the expeditioners, beginning with Expedition 0. Here he made friends. And after traveling with several expeditions, he eventually fell in love with a woman named Julie. Unfortunately, Julie suspected something after Verso was mortally wounded and killed. He should have died, but instead she watched him come back to life. So she convinced the other expeditioners to capture and interrogate Verso. It was Julie who saw Verso die, so she was the mastermind behind everything. She was behind the abduction, interrogation, which gave him no choice but to kill them and her. Verso killed the woman that he loved, and the people he thought were his friends.
Isn't there literally a scene of him killing Julie from the game? This scene is so distracting right now. I'm trying to listen to what she's saying, but I have Netflix brain. I always read the subtitles. I'm gonna go back a little bit just to understand better what she's trying to say here. But like, is she saying that
It was a journal,
Julie
I think. Yeah, I don't think it was a visual.
was working against her? No, I thought there was literally a scene where, like we saw it in the last video that we reacted to yesterday. I don't know. Let me re-listen to what she's saying here.
Okay.
But instead, she watched him come back to life. So she convinced the other expeditioners to capture and interrogate Verso. It was Julie who saw Verso die, so she was the mastermind behind everything. She was behind the abduction, interrogation, which gave him no choice but to kill them and her. Verso killed the woman that he loved, and the people he thought were his friends. And he did this to stop them from destroying his painted family. The irony that Aline painted him here to live happily with her, and yet the people of Lumiere that she also painted alongside him would be the cause of immense pain and regret for Verso. At every turn, Aline was hurting her son and her family. Since being painted, Verso has only known heartbreak and loss. He won't get to live alongside his real sister, and his other sister Clair killed her painted version of herself when she saw him. At first, when they meet each other, she has a moment where she sees Verso and reaches out for him like it's the old him. But she realizes very quickly that he is not real. She won't let herself be persuaded or have that emotion.
Okay, this is wrong
So
as
she
well.
quickly kills herself, ejecting herself from the canvas. And Verso had to experience that. He has all the real Verso's memories of their childhood together and all the memories of his family. And he knows that this version of them is more broken. But the family that's living in the real world is even worse. In Aline's desperation,
It sounds like she's assuming this was the real Clair. This is Aline's version of Clair that Clair painted over.
Yep.
That the real Clair painted over. So the painted version of Clair is the one that is like, I just need to get out of this. I'm tired of existing this way, because for like 60 7 years she's been trapped inside of her own self, working, making Nevrons, because Clair, the real Clair, turned her into a Nevron factory, basically.
Yeah.
To be with him and save him from death, she has doomed him to live the worst possible life. A shadow of a dead man, cursed with knowing the truth of both worlds, and forced to live with a family that isn't real. Aline isn't operating in malice, but I think the Clair Obscur light-dark aspect really shows itself in her character. She is a grieving mother who desperately loves her son, but she's also a mother who has neglected the rest of her family. She's a mother who wasn't there for them when they needed her the most. And because of this, she has caused so much more pain than everyone was already experiencing. Her story is about how grief is all-consuming if you let it take you, and how that grief can consume you but also hurt those around you. While it's extremely sad, it's also extremely hurtful. And you realize this the most in the end. Fighting the Paintress isn't some valiant, heroic victory. It's sad. Aline is a woman broken by her grief, who is mourning the only way that she knows how. It's wrong, but it's also tragic. She has lost her sense of self, and in the process she has begun to lose everything she's so worried about saving. Her grief becomes a black hole, and through all her fighting with Renoir, the thing she is fighting so hard to save isn't even the thing she was saving to begin with. The world within Verso's painting is completely changed, and Verso is miserable. He wants to die. Yet she can't see any of this. I think her and Renoir not having eyes is the...
What's also crazy is she could have already had her lifetime with this family and been out of the painting by now. So this whole fight between them, like the reason they stopped aging, he said they got to a certain point, at one point in the story, Verso says, we got to a certain age and then we stopped aging. And that's when our hair turned white. That was because I think she literally hit the pause button on her whole family while she was dealing with Renoir. And if she was allowed to go without that, I really feel like she would have been out of the painting years before this point. In painting years, not in real world time. But yeah, it's at the Shattering Expedition Zero. Yeah, that's when their hair turned white. So it's very telling that one of those, another like kind of, what's the right word? What is it called when you a theme of the story is kind of let people grieve, because this whole interference just caused so much more grief, if that makes sense. Like the whole fight that they're doing here, in my opinion, caused way more damage than it helped Aline.
Yeah.
The perfect symbolism to their characters, and maybe an intentional depiction of their avatars within the world. Maybe their painted selves used to have full faces, but over time they have lost sight of everything. They don't see the destruction they're causing. Aline most of all. By the end of the fight against Aline, she puts a shield on a random expeditioner. It's an odd choice. Maybe it's her final moment of realizing how wrong she has been. Maybe it's an apology of some kind. Or maybe it's a manipulation tactic. I think that one seems less likely, but why shield an expeditioner? Is it so she can finally be defeated? Is it her giving them an upper hand against her? In this moment, is she realizing this is finally her last moment here, and she is inevitably going to die? And maybe she realizes that she has to. Alongside this, her last words as the Paintress are to Alicia. She looks over and sees the daughter who was, without her scars, without her mask, and in full color. She's finally seeing what is worth fighting for. Maybe with this realization, she can let go and live. while also giving Alicia and the rest of her family the support that they also need. Killing the paintress sends Aline back to the real world, and all that's left is Renoir. He will once again fight to ensure that the canvas is destroyed, but Maëlle is more desperate than ever to hold on to it, now taking the place of her mother. She is now the one standing in opposition to Renoir. It's sad that once again, he sees that he must do this with his daughter. All the versions that fought her before were the painted Renoir, but now this is really him. Once again, he is enduring the pain of standing for what he must do to protect his family. After defeating him, Maëlle tries to convince him once again. And he's so tired of fighting his wife, so tired after 67 years of being imprisoned, so tired of fighting his family. And now his daughter is lying to his face. He sees how desperate she is to stay. And in a way, maybe he gives up, because maybe he really is just too tired. Or maybe because he realizes that there's nothing that he can do at this point to change Maëlle's mind. So he goes back to the living world. In a way, Renoir's story is the most tragic. He first loses his son, then his wife to his dead son's canvas. His daughter is injured, forever changed. And once he enters the canvas because he has to go after his wife, he is forced to be her enemy, watching as she destroys herself and also destroys the only piece of his son left. He has no time to mourn, no time to process. He simply has to save his wife. He's trying to pick up the pieces of his family and hasn't been given any time to pick up the
Type 1 if you've ever had to be Renoir for your family.
Jeez.
Oh my God. Like, everybody's being so out of it, and you're just like, dude, things gotta get done. Things gotta happen.
That's literally you.
That's me all the time, dude. Oh my God.
Also, Brandon, you have really good takes on YouTube. We're actually on Twitch having the discussion, Gulak School on Twitch.
Oh yeah, please come over to Twitch if you've got good points. I'd
really,
love to see them.
really.
Jasmine
I've been reading them.
The YouTube chat, I can't quite see it at this moment, so
I've been reading your paragraphs. It's really good discussions.
All right, we'll keep going. I think the way this video was divided up, I thought there were the recap was only like here to here, but it seems like it keeps going. So we're almost done with the recap, and then we can hear the real takes.
Pieces of himself. And he has to do this all while knowing his daughter is wasting away on the outside. And his other daughter is becoming hardened and bitter. And he knows that Clair is really the only one actually picking up the pieces after the fire. And there's nothing that he can do in his state to help her. Renoir spends 67 years dedicated to trying to save his family. And they only fight him even harder.
I also hate that people keep making a hero out of Clair. Clair saying that she doesn't care that her mom is grieving is super immature. And it's a different way of coping. She's like disconnecting herself from her family so that she can cope with Verso passing. You know what I mean? It's almost like she's choosing to feel nothing so that she can cope and do what she believes has to be done instead of caring for her family members. But yeah, Clair is also grieving, exactly. But yeah, it seems like almost every one of these videos, they're like, Clair's the only one. No, Clair is also grieving. She's grieving in her own way. She's not a superhero, or I don't know. She's not special.
I feel like a lot of people don't relate with the way Clair grieves.
Yeah.
Like, kind of how you and I, like, we're the type of people that can just, we go to work, we do what we gotta do, you go on with your day, even though you're grieving internally, you kind of just, you still move on, you know?
Yeah.
And a lot of people aren't like that.
But she's moving on and pretending she doesn't care about her family as like a form of cope, and it's pretty gross.
Yeah.
Until the very end.
Not right.
He has to watch as the painted version that his wife depicted him of fights the painted version of his son, scarring them both. He has to watch as even this version of his family is torn apart. And not only that, but he sees how his wife depicted his own family. And even here, where Aline could have painted anything, she paints a version of Alicia where she is again forced to endure the suffering of the fire. His family is broken even inside the canvas. Everything he does is for them, and yet he is fought, disregarded, and in the end, his daughter wants to live in the painting, full knowing that this will probably be the last time she ever sees her father. All he knows is suffering. He fights for as long as he can, but in the end, the choice is really up to Mael and Verso. We then finally see the little boy Verso, the tiny piece of his soul that remains within the canvas, painting this world. And here we, the player, are given the final choice. What do we do with the canvas? And the narrative does a good job of putting you in the perspective of both characters, if not all of them, which makes you feel for everyone. The world within the canvas is not real. But to this I ask, how do we know we are not real? How do we, as Mael and Aline and Renoir, not know our own world was also created by another painter? That is what painters do. They toe the edge of godhood, creating and destroying life on a whim. Learning the truth behind Verso, Ciel, and Lune shouldn't make us stop feeling for this world. If anything, we should realize that the emotions felt towards them and by them are just as real as the emotions in the living world. And on a bit of a meta-analysis as the player, as someone experiencing this very situation, through the stories that we play, are those emotions not real? We are supposed to feel Alicia's pain and again, her grief, knowing that the living world and the canvas cannot both exist. If we could disappear into the games and books and stories we experience, if we could form bonds with the characters that we love, would we be able to simply destroy everything within those worlds and leave it behind forever? Stories and imaginations are powerful, and I think that if people could escape into the worlds that we create, a lot of people would choose to stay, which is why Mael is struggling. This world is real to her, even knowing that it isn't. She must make a sacrifice in the end, and the burden of that choice is something that we feel. There is a right answer, but both endings are still a balance of light and dark, a balance of Clair Obscur, which is what this entire story, its themes and characters are about. Every person is light and dark, sometimes capable of things we don't even know, until we're put in the...
Actually, that's exactly what the faceless things are. They're shadows. So this version of you that you can like see with a face, this is a bad example on the screen right now, but if this was Renoir and this was the curator, the curator is his shadow, and Renoir, the way we can physically see him and he can act, is like the light part of himself. So like the shadow can go do things without him while he's trapped under the monolith, but it's limited because the shadow is like operating on its own like weird sentience, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
that situation. And through all of this, the Desandras realize what lengths they will go to, but also how differently they all handle loss. But the real question is at the end, can they move on? Can Mael let go of this world? Can Aline let go of Verso's canvas? Can Renoir repair his family? And can Clair depend on her family after this? So what choice do we make? Verso wants to die, and Mael wants to live, but only within the canvas. Neither of them get the ending that they really want. Mael wants both worlds to exist, while Verso says he wants this all to end. And I think there's part of him that would have gone to the real world if he could have. His emotions towards his family, while complicated, were still real. But he must die for them to move on, and he knows this. Both endings have loss and even more grief, but it's clear which one is the happier ending for Alicia, who actually has a choice, whereas for Verso, there is only one way forward. If Mael stays in the canvas, the happiness that follows is hollow and fake. Verso does not want to live like this, and he has already lived like this for over 100 years. In those final moments, he begs and pleads for her to let him go, let him die. And you can hear the agony that she is forcing him to endure. For him,
This scene was so heartbreaking to watch.
He has not lived for over 100 years, has he?
No.
Is he? I think he's right at 100 years old, right?
In dog years, maybe? No, I don't think it's quite
How much
that.
older than Alicia is he? And is Alicia 16? Because that's the other thing that I think was never quite properly answered. Like, this is their childhood home.
Oh, he is around 100 because he was an adult at Expedition 0 to 67 years ago. If he was 26 at 0...
Yeah, 26 at 0, so 26 plus 67. So he's not quite 100 yet.
But that is interesting.
But yeah. I'll link the YouTube video at the end, JD.
Yeah.
him, this is traumatic. This is torture. Yet Alicia's grief sees nothing but her own happiness, even if she knows it is not real. She is in denial and reached the point that her mother was at. She is willing to hurt the people that she loves, which is most evident in this ending. When we see Verso's face, he is miserable. Without Aline making him immortal, he's beginning to age and he's an old man now. Alicia had told Verso that she wanted to grow old with him, but that was never possible, and he will probably die soon. But the saddest part of this ending is the way that Verso looks at her, with his empty but suffering eyes, and the way that she smiles back at him, a smile devoid of true happiness. She knows that he's miserable, and yet, to get what she wants, she forces this on him, and then she fakes her own smile back at him. Verso playing piano at the end embodies exactly what this ending is. Nothing more than a performance. It is not real. From Verso's perspective, he doesn't want to live as a puppet.
I didn't think about this, but if Verso is this old, and he's been aging in the painting to get to this point in the ending, why are the other people not aging? Gustav, Lune, CL.
Oh, interesting.
He doesn't want to be a toy, and in this ending, he is nothing more than Mael's toy. But they're not the only ones who matter in this ending. Yes, Verso is miserable, and Mael is not getting the happiness she thought she would find here. But Gustav, CL, Lune, Monoko, and Esquier are happy. Is their happiness worth the suffering of the remaining Dissandras? I don't know. And did they tell everyone the truth? Lune and CL seem okay living like this, knowing that their world was created by a painter, because this is all that they've ever known. And it doesn't matter how or where their world came from. It's real to them. And this ending is really only happy for them. But again, these people are from the painted canvas world that isn't real. So does their happiness really matter? In the ending where the canvas is destroyed, the family has a chance. But the rest of the canvas world comes at the cost of this chance. The Dissandras in this ending are clearly still grieving and processing everything that has happened to them. They seem disconnected and unsure. There's a weariness to them. A family that is broken, unsure of how to fix the broken parts, unsure of how to move forward. Renoir and Aline are finally showing some compassion for one another, realizing they do have each other to lean on during this. And their love and support will keep them together and help them move past this. Clair stands to the side alone because she already knows how to support herself. And while Alicia is also alone, She is supported by her plushie of Esquier. Her plushie is the reminder of those times and how those who are gone.
So real quick, in 1905, what calendar were we using then? Were we using the same calendar?
Yeah. Yes. Angel said something earlier about this date. I can't remember.
It doesn't exist in the Gregorian calendar.
This would be either a fake world or parallel. Yeah. Universe, yeah. I think it's fictional.
No, I think I remember a calendar where this existed.
I'm trying to get what y'all are y'all saying, like, there's the painted world, then there's this world, but even this world might not be real? Is that what you guys are trying to get at?
I mean, for them, remember we went into the painting room and they had powers in the real world as well.
Yeah.
So, like, that's the other thing that's interesting. But I think there is a calendar that exists where every month has 30 days and all of the ones that have 31 are just added on to December at the end.
Yeah.
I can't remember, but I'm pretty sure there is a calendar where this exists. So,
no, it's just that there's 33 days in December on that plaque. Yeah, that's what's kind of a little confusing to me. But grief is definitely a brutal thing to have to deal with. Yeah. Julian calendar. Yeah, I remember when we were reacting to this scene to begin with, I pointed that out. I was like, okay, 33, and like, you know, then he also died at the 33 in the game, but then Seth also commented on that, but we never looked it up.
There's a thing called a French Republican, Republican calendar.
Oh, maybe this. After the French Revolution and for just over a decade, France turned to a completely different calendar, even choosing to have a different clock, in an attempt to erase the influence of royalty and religion on everyday life. A month called Frimaire, 100 minutes in an hour, years marked with Roman numerals. What's going on? Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I think this is a little too high of focus because I think there are calendars that exist that the 35th of or the 33rd of December exists. But yeah, something that is also interesting with this, where they're honoring his passing and that sort of thing, is the mother come to complete terms with it? Like,
and their love and support.
Everybody seems super down, but she's looking to Renoir.
Yeah, they seem like they're all kind of coming together, but they're all just tired.
And I don't know if that means that the developers were just trying to portray them as have finally moved on, but Renoir is just
done.
He's done.
Candid on YouTube said, I thought the date on it was just a tribute to the expedition, like of when he passed. So like maybe this isn't his original grave. Maybe this is one they made after.
Yeah, that's
that could be something too. I didn't think about it like that.
Well. All right, we'll continue.
It will keep them together and help them move past this. Clair stands to the side alone because she already knows how to support herself. And while Alicia is also alone, she is supported by her plushie of Esquier. Her plushie is the reminder of those times and how those who are gone live on, just like Verso told her. Clair leaves first, ready to move on with life. And then Aline and Renoir follow second. And last, Alicia remains at the grave the longest. She sees her friends from the canvas world and sees herself alongside them. And the version of herself that she's looking at can be interpreted a few ways, I think. Is this how she sees the old her? Unsure and a little timid? Is this her saying goodbye to her past self? Or is this the true reflection of how she feels? She feels like she seems alone and unsure. She doesn't really feel like she's supported by those around her here. Is she just seeing Maëlle and recognizing herself as Alicia now? Or even vice versa? To me, this seems like she is still going to be the one to grieve the longest, and maybe the hardest. And it seems like she needs more support than maybe her father can give her, with how much her mother will need support going forward. Alicia was only hugged by her plushie, And I think she's still uncertain. Uncertain of what the future holds and uncertain of what things are going to look like now. But I think she's ready to try to move on.
Can you pause for 1 second?
And I think that's where
What's up?
like, the more I think about that, like, it's not like she's thinking of her Mael's life as like a distant memory. Like, that is up to this point. Like, that she had a life, a family, like she grew up. Like, that would be so just like, they will not be able to relate the same way.
With like the
That's
memories
just
that are
crazy.
in her head are not real. It is crazy.
Like, she's grieving a completely different life and a completely different her that could speak. That
I think the only people that could really relate to her experience are people that have had like brain injuries where they forget who they were. They live a portion of their life and then suddenly something is healed and they remember all of those memories, because that happens.
Yeah. And Candid said someone had a theory that the writers are the actual writers of the game and this world is a fictional one, so a fake world within a fake world. I've been seeing that theory go around. It is interesting. Dude, it just messed with my mind, but I kind of feel bad for her in this scene, this ending.
Yeah, she's going through a lot.
Yeah, that's hard.
the hopefulness of this ending comes in. It's sad, but there's hope for Alicia and hope for this family. The story having no true happy ending.
Wait,
What? What did you notice?
the axons and the endings are flipped. If you choose Mael, you end up doing you being the one who hides truth with lies. Because you live in the painting in a fake reality. But if you choose Verso's ending, you end up being the one with hope for a future. Which was Alicia's axon, was the hope one.
Oh, I see what you're saying. That's interesting.
Makes sense. Grief is
I
horrible.
don't know if that was
And
that's
through
gotta
Alicia's
be
story,
on purpose.
she still hasn't fully processed it. And her ending is just the beginning of that story. We get to feel what she feels, that in the ending, she is still losing someone no matter what. There's uncertainty, but there's still loss. But still, at the end, there is a tiny glimmer of hope. The story is about facing grief and loss. And the ending being bittersweet reflects what Alicia must do, and the damage that must be repaired. This ending also reflects what Aline taught Renoir, and what Renoir tells Alicia. Having their gift comes at a cost. Clair Obscur's world is bearing the burden of the Desandra family's grief. They remind me of the Greek gods in mythology, where the gods just act on a whim, uncaring of those who it affects, or if the lesser people will be hurt or even die.
I think it's a little different from that as well. Like, I've personally written stories and stuff like that, and there's times where your brain is literally so enveloped in it that you can see it, you're there, it's happening while you're writing it, and you're like putting those details onto the paper, and then later you can remember it like it actually happened, like it was an actual event, if that makes sense.
I've had dreams like that.
Yeah. I mean, that's
Where-
really what I think a good writer is doing, is just like dreaming while awake.
Yeah, there's times where I've literally have had dreams and I've thought back on them and be like, well, did that happen?
That wasn't real.
like as if it was a memory. It's
But
so
yeah,
weird.
I think it's less about the Greek gods and that sort of thing, and more of like when you tell a story to yourself, it becomes very real. And that's also a scary thing for people that are like, that lie a lot, because there's times where they start to believe their own lie.
And this story shows you examples of that, while also showing you that different people grieve differently. Through Alicia/Mael, we see someone unable to let go, to the point that she will sacrifice herself. Through her mother, we see someone who had completely been consumed by her grief, that had driven her to near madness. Aline's fixation on saving Verso meant that everyone else in her family would be hurt in the process. Clair is grieving for the family that she had, and in the process has hardened herself to process her own and her family's grief. Through Renoir, we see someone who isn't able to even process the grief of his son before he's about to lose his wife and now daughter. And he goes to lengths that seem horrible to save them. He even fights them to do so. With Lune, we see someone who has channeled her grief into determination. She does not want to stop and won't give up to try to end the suffering. She's a bit hardened like Clair, but in a different way. Through Ciel, we see a woman who has accepted death. She finds peace in the inevitable. Even though death is her worst enemy, she still sees it as a friend. Her husband was taken from her even earlier than his intended gommage, but she accepts it. She found a way to find peace, which is represented in the very first scenes of the story. Our first introduction to Clair Obscur is a festival dedicated to the gommage. At the beginning of the journey, we see this horrible event turned into something beautiful. The people of Lumiere have turned this horrible event of losing those they love into this vibrant festival filled with flowers that cover the sky. They've taken something scary and dark and sad and found beauty within it. Through this journey, we also meet other expeditioners who have devoted their lives to the lives that come after. Their perseverance and determination that all their suffering means something in the long run is them grieving the lives they could and should have had, but instead are trying to pass that on to those who come after. There's hope in the town of Lumiere despite it all, and there's people still trying to...
Okay, I have a really big problem with this video so far. There's not a lot of takes. I feel like this entire video has just been a recap of the game and like how they saw the game, and it's not like, I don't know. I'm not a fan of this video so far, is what I want to say. I'm 39 minutes in, and I'm still waiting for like the sort of like take.
Yeah, because it's titled a
like,
story
where
analysis
are you
of
gonna
Clair.
tell me something where I'm like, yo, I didn't see that, or hey, this is cool, this is new information. This is not a great video in my opinion. It's just kind of telling us what we already know, and honestly, I think the stuff that we've spoken on is just like, oh, I thought about this, like, what if this? Whereas this is just like representing that information over and over.
Yeah, I would have to, like, if it was just kind of going over the story, I don't know if that was her reason for the video. Yeah. It's well done.
Oh, it's a
really
very
well done. Very well edited video.
She's very articulate, but she's not giving me a YouTube video.
I want to know what her opinion is and like what her thoughts are, and maybe there'll be a little snippet at the end, but
still waiting. But I think we've waited long enough. The first 10 minutes should be the recap, and then everything.
Yeah,
like
I agree.
We played the game. We're watching this because we played the game, and we're 39 minutes in, and we're still getting recaps of the game.
When you read a story analysis, what do you think? You think of opinion? Like, you think, because that's just what the title of it is.
Well, when I do my review, you guys will see what I think, how I think a video like this should be done. But yeah, this is a lot of information, and it feels like I'm just listening to somebody ramble about the story.
It's helped us have a conversation, though, which I like.
Yeah, definitely. It's good to rehear these points and have our own takes, but I'm waiting on the creator of the video to give me a take.
End the suffering with the expeditions.
I think this is just
they're
a summary
still trying,
video,
they're still living, despite everything. Because the game is not only about processing grief, but about how humanity will prevail and how love and family and friends can help us endure. The themes of grief and Clair Obscur ask us, how much are we willing to let our grief hurt others? How much does our own grief and despair affect those we love, especially when we don't face it and when we don't find a way through it? When life keeps moving around us, but we are forever still, and our loved ones are faced with taking care of themselves, but also us. What will we force others to endure for our own sake? What Alicia forced on Painted Verso was wrong. He was suffering and begging her to stop, but she was so consumed in her grief that she ignored his pleas for death. Renoir was also forced to make some horrible decisions, fighting his own family. But he knew they needed to leave the canvas and live their real lives. And he was willing to do anything to make that happen, even if it meant they would hate him in the process. And on the opposite of Renoir's selflessness, what he was doing to try to save his family caused so much suffering for others. How much grief do we force on others to save those we love? Renoir was destroying Lumiere and killing the people that live there. Every year, the despair and grief was more than the year before. Lives became shorter and the number of those lost only grew. Does the people of Lumiere being painted remove the suffering they experienced at Renoir's hand? Does Lunet, Gustave, or Ciel, or even Minoko and Esquier being painted make their grief not matter?
All right, that one's a good point, because I think that it does matter. I think a lot of the people that were in the painting, there is a moment where it starts to matter and a moment where it stops to matter. And it starts to matter when none of the painters are involved with the people. So once the monolith is created and Renoir and Aline can no longer interact with the painting by like correcting people, is where their sentience actually comes into play and becomes important. But as soon as that ends, when they're leaving the painting and all of these people have to quit existing, that no longer matters. At some point, they would stop existing inside the painting anyways, because there would be a new group of people coming in. And as much as that matters, the people outside the painting have to continue. But it also stops mattering as soon as Maëlle makes it her own playground. Because then she is doing that same thing that Aline was doing prior to being on the monolith, where she's making everyone around her act a certain way. She's not a painter, she's a puppet master at that point. Like, the painters can create these things and let them run, and when they are running on their own, that is when it is a real world. While these people, their sentience matters, their want for survival matters, them going on these expeditions are all proof that they want to continue living and deserve to continue living. But the fight for that only exists when they're not in this blissful state of constantly being corrected and repainted. Not repainted, but like forced to exist in a way that benefits the painter. Yeah. If that makes sense. But yeah, as soon as like creation of the monolith matters, end of the monolith, it doesn't matter anymore. And it's just because at that point they become puppets again. They're not their own sentient beings anymore. They're just puppets.
Suffering and grief not important too? The game leaves some room for ambiguity as far as some of these questions, and the answer is really up to your own interpretation. But I don't think the game is shy about telling you the right ending. It is important that we move on, that we live. Escaping into a fake world, forcing others to fill your needs, and pretending you're okay is not how you process grief. You only hurt yourself and everyone around you, as seen in Maëlle's ending. You could argue that how Verso feels about the situation is irrelevant, because he too is a painted person. Alongside Ciel, Lunet, and Gustave, his experience is just as fake as them. But he had the memories of what happened. And after knowing everything of both worlds, he knew the best choice was for Alicia to return to the living world so that she would live. And he would not live like this, being used as a puppet anymore. I found their message of needing to move on perfectly clear in the endings, and I really like that about the narrative. With the canvas gone and Verso finally laid to rest, the Desandra family can pick up the pieces of what remains, and hopefully properly process their grief together, and find a way to move on together. Maybe this story, these characters, this world, will help someone deal with their own grief, as that is the beauty of art. This is a beautiful story, a beautiful game. And as an artist, the way this game is its own work of art, using the art in the game to process grief as a painter was like a warm hug. This is what artists do. This is how we cope. And not just artists, but humans. What makes this story emblematic of grief is how art is literally a form of processing human emotions. It's something we can all experience because it transcends everything about being a human. Art is the purest form of human creativity, where our deepest emotions and experiences shape how we see life and how we share that with other people. And this game felt like a love letter to artists who use their art to process their grief and emotions, whether it be painting, creating video games, creating music, or any other type of art. And some of the most beautiful and devastating works have been painted by people experiencing some of the worst, unimaginable grief. The Isle of the Dead by Arnold Böcklin is just one of many beautiful paintings that touch on dark topics using the technique of Clair Obscur, the harsh contrast between light and dark. Clair Obscur is life, and this game was absolutely beautiful.
I'm doing my best to hang in there, guys, but like, this is very much a flowery essay video just for the sake of getting a video out on time.
If you are still here, this ended up being a very long video. I did not expect to find so much to talk about. So if you're still here, thank you. I really, really, really loved this game. I don't love the combat, but just about everything else I was absolutely in love with. And I hope that my interpretation of the game maybe gave you something to think about. I do think this is worth a second playthrough, and I want to replay the game and make sure that I got all of this right, and that I didn't really miss anything. Because I do think this is the type of game that you piece together better on a second playthrough. I also don't do a lot of these kind of like analysis videos, so I don't think I structured this very well. In the future, if I do more of those, I will be more cautious of that, but thank you for being patient with me again if you are still here. But let me know what you think. Did you...
Cool. So, let me show you this.
Hold on. I thought it was
Look, story recap, 1 minute. My interpretation starts at 9 minutes. These timestamps don't exist, and that frustrates me to no end.
Yeah.
Because these are like chapters, and there's absolutely no chapters. There's no like... The entire thing is a summary of the video. Tittles, thank you for the bits.
Hi,
the entire video is just a summary of the game. It doesn't really have a stance, and that's really frustrating for somebody that's watching a video like this.
Yeah.
I didn't enjoy it. But let us know what you think down in the comments. We're going to end it there for the YouTube section. Unless you have a take.
I'm giving my little take.
Go ahead.
Yes, I would love to. I thought, just as going over the story, I thought she did an amazing job. I love how she kind of explained it. Like, if I wanted to just watch a video just to go over the story of the game to kind of develop my own thoughts, because the game is a lot when you go through it and then you're taking a break going through combat. I enjoyed the video for that aspect.
Yeah, it's a good summary video.
Very, very well done video. And I like when I watch these videos, a lot of the times the person has an annoying voice, and she was really nice to listen
she has
to.
A great,
like she said at the end, doesn't really do stuff like this. So I think the only critique, similar to you, is like I just am dying the whole time to hear what you think.
Yeah,
I want to know what she thinks. I hear the interpretation of her, what she thought of the story
should happen, and then she should reference that summary when talking about important topics and dive into that topic.
But otherwise, very well
done.
done.
It was like quick little thing on a topic, and then it was a very broad take on that topic, and doesn't show her stance, which is not an enjoyable video for me.
I want her to say a statement that she thinks, or ask me a question and make me think like, oh my goodness, like that's a really good take. Or, you know, like the last video that we watched yesterday of that guy that had his take of Verso and if he's still alive, that made me think, even if I don't fully agree with it, that was a take he had. So, but otherwise, I enjoyed this video.
I'm gonna like the video. I subscribe.
It's Kayla Elizabeth. Definitely will subscribe. I see you gave her a like.
Description.
Yeah, we'll put it in the description of this video and we'll link it in our Twitch chat. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time.
If you have a better video, please, for the love of
yes,
God,
share it with us.
Share it to me. I want to react to a really good take video on this game.
Yes.
I want takes. I want hot takes. We
And
know
then
what
we'll be
happened in the
making
game.
our own. We'll be making our own for
True.
sure.
All right, thank you guys
Till
for watching.
next time, bye guys.
Bye.